And I don't know what I was doing. Some friend of mine from Los Angeles called, and I was ready to give up. And I was ready to say, you know what, guys, this is stupid. I don't know how you're not able to see how stupid this is, but this is stupid. Let's just call it off. Let me just regroup and find a director to do it. And he called at the right time and he said, Maddie, you're already there, man. What are you going to lose? Put the camera, just take one shot. Just take one step at a time, one shot at a time. If you think you're still not getting it, cancel it after the end of the day. But take your first shot now. And I said, you know what? Okay, you're right. That makes a lot more sense. And Ranveer, I took my first shot. And as I took the shot, I saw it being a complete replication of what I had envisaged when I wrote that scene. That was exactly it. And then I said, okay, hey, great. Let's do it. Let's do another shot and another shot. And the biggest lesson in stress, which is one step at a time. If you're skiing, for instance, and you're looking at the skis when you're skiing, you'll fall. They always say when you're skiing, look down the slope to where you're heading. The body will take you there. So as far as handling stress, it was exactly the opposite. Look right in front of your step. Just take that one step and the next step. And I ended up finishing rocketry.
One wouldn't imagine that someone like you also feels that amount of stress at this stage of your career. Because you would have probably seen all of it till now.
Not really. No. Every day is a monster, man. I'm telling you.
Why do you choose to wrestle with it again and again?
Like I said, I'm not ready to retire yet. So if I find a path of least resistance, I don't take it. I need to take the path of most resistance because I can.
One layer deep. Why?
So that's what I'm saying. If I conquer that big problem, the lesser ones are easy to manage. You don't see it. I mean, if I'm, the reason they tap you before you give an injection is that pain is a lot more than the small prick that you're going to feel. So I want to do this all the time to every part of my mind, so that small pricks are irrelevant.
How was your childhood?
Most blessed childhood I can imagine. It had all its challenges and it had all its trauma. And I believe trauma and childhood stress is very, very important.
What was the trauma?
Oh, the trauma was like, I didn't have as much as a cycle as the rest of the person. The rest of my friends were. My dad was very sure that he didn't want to make me grow up privileged, even though both of them were working. He spent the money at the right places, but he would not indulge me. The trauma was that, why do I have to walk to school and all my friends can have cycles? Or, I come back home in the evening and there's nobody to feed me. I have to wait for Ma to get back at 6 o'clock. So this is when I was a child. You're talking about childhood, that kind of trauma. But apart from that, the fact that I was not great at studies and I was always being compared to other people who were studying for so many hours. And I was actually called the shaitan of the society. Mothers used to say, don't play with Balaji, which is my pet name, because he's not a good guy. He uses profanities and he, climbs trees and he pets the street dogs. All conditionings that they thought was not right for growing up. So that does, you being judged does add a lot of trauma to you when you're a child. But trauma is a big word, Ranveer. It's a word I think that's sometimes overexposed and overexploited. That stress is going to be there, like it or lump it, and you really have to hug it. And once you do that, you'll find your own way of getting over it. Most people try to avoid stress and get into bigger ones.
Rohit Shetty had said this in a recent interview. I think he said that the issue nowadays is that most young people are mixing up the feeling of stress with the feeling of work.
Hard work.
With hard work, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. He's absolutely right.
In terms of, if you want to go somewhere in life, that means you'll have to break out a little bit. That means you'll probably have to exchange something, which probably is your sense of comfort. You have to get out of your comfort zone.
That's a killer. Comfort zone should be just removed from everybody's life till you're in a point where you want to retire from life. This is the last place in the world where creativity or survival instincts, get generated.
Agree. I believe the new generation, myself included, has become deeply goal-oriented, which has honestly got me a lot in life, like being goal-oriented, having that little end goal about things. At this stage, I'm really not goal-oriented, but I feel like to get here, it took that little bit of targeting and visualization and manifestation, for the lack of a better word. And that represents the mass consciousness also. People have these visions of the best kind of life, or they see something on social media and they're like, I want that. And It's usually something which is deeply aspirational. People have also got a lot of information. People want a little hand holding, which is why this 5 crore mark and 30 crore mark. And people use a lot of YouTube nowadays. So people are able to quantify how they will be able to achieve those visualizations. I know that what you're saying is actually the wisdom one requires, but I'm trying to explain where the question came from.
Totally understand.
Because what I wish to ask you next is about Vedant. He's also become a social media sensation. So there's a narrative which is anti-nepotism. And then they always talk about R.Madhavan as the guy who has kind of broken out of nepotism-based mindsets. I don't even know what that means. I'm sure you've come across these memes. Like people love your son. Therefore, they love R.Madhavan's belief system. Which is what I wish to ask you. I know that we're kind of tangentially moving in here because everything that you're talking about, hard work and mindset, you've obviously told your son who's a champion swimmer. People love him. People love that he's representing the country today. First question, are you aware of all these memes about you two?
Yes, we are. Sarita and I are not very pleased about it.
Really?
Yeah, we regret it because comparing a child to another child or to... see, memes are meant to be consumed and people do what it takes to make the meme consumable. And at times they don't realize how much they hurt other people, right? So when Vedant gets compared to other kids in the industry, it's not something Sarita and I like, nor do we endorse it, nor do we forward it, or nor do we acknowledge it. Yes, I'm not going to take away from what Vedant has achieved. Okay, he's done what it takes to get the medals that he's done and get the national record that he done. And being a celebrity's child is not easy. He's going to get a lot more attention than most of his friends who achieved greater level of success, being his same age as Vedant. So we do our best to try and promote the other guys as well. Vedant isn't the best in the country, but he's definitely an actor's child who has managed to create a national record when in that age group. So not taking away from that. I'm very aware of those memes, and it doesn't make me feel pleased whatsoever at all.
When I was speaking to people about this conversation that we were going to have, everyone brought this up as a compliment for you.
I understand.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable.
How would you? No. You don't need to apologize. How would you know how Sarita and I view it? Because it's a double-edged sword. Even for Vedant to consider himself to be worthy of all that attention is stupidity. If he was not my son, and the sport doesn't see whose son you are, it just sees the numbers and the fractions of a second that you're either faster or slower. And the fact that he's not the best in the country. There are many kids his age and his age group who've got more records and are much better than him. Thankfully, my son is wise enough to understand all that. And Sarita and I keep explaining to him that there are pitfalls of being used today. Can I take time to explain how it means?
Take your time.
So when you win a competition and you see so many memes and congratulatory methods and, people making news, they're all doing to flatter and pay homage to us, which we are very grateful to. Okay. But for Vedant, he suddenly realizes, boss, I got this 4 gold medals in Malaysia. This is how many followers came to me, and this is how many people took autographs from me, and this is how many people praised me. At a young age, that's plays beautifully on your mind, and it becomes very motivating, okay? What happens next in the next race, for instance, is that maybe he's not done as well, okay? Maybe instead of 5, he's only got 2 medals. Okay. And the next race, he still gets 1 medal. He's still making progress. He's still doing his personal best. But the amount of recognition and the adulation and the happiness is not the same. So what does the child do? He tries to compensate for it in one way or the other just to get the same amount of endorphins kicking into your mind. So he'll put up an extra post. He'll put up an extra video of him working out. I'm giving you examples, right?
Sure.
So that you want to achieve the same level of euphoria every time when you do an achievement, not realizing that the lack of it is actually training you to say you're not as good as you were. So let's work a little harder, or let's try to change the approach. So we consciously try and tell him, nah, babda, this is how much you have done. So if you take out the Madhavan from your name, Vedant, this is where you stand. I have to constantly do that. And so thankfully, over a period of time, I was able to make him understand that you're going to be Judgments are going to be passed against you. As much as people are flattering you, the moment you falter once, the amount of axes and brick bats that you'll feel will be equally high compared to somebody else who makes a smaller mistake, or somebody else who makes a bigger mistake but is not a celebrity's son. So this is the conditioning I'm talking about. So the level of happiness you were talking about, and what this 5-year plan, everything that you desire for, is all a product of your conditioning, right? I might aspire to have a Rolls Royce, but a billionaire's son's aspiration is, that's a basic requirement. Why would Rolls Royce be? So his level of happiness is maybe something completely different as opposed to you and me. So what is enough money to be happy? And then you define that happiness that money will give you, and suddenly you realize the correlation is not the same. The richest person in the world has not got 10 billion times more happiness than you just because you have 10 crores, man. He'll die if it's that much of happiness. So his happiness and ability to handle sadness and tragedy and stress is the same as anybody. Who's happier? If a beggar on the road, for instance, suddenly finds 100 rupees when he least expects it to and he needs it, compared to a businessman who's just made a profit of 20,000 crores instead of 30,000 crores, who do you think is sleeping happier that night? And so I can be a parent, I can be a superstar or an actor, and my son can have all the recognition. But the amount of stress that I have as a parent is the same as any middle class family has. It's really frightening.
But you are drilling in the humility. I don't see a lot of, I'm not talking about just media, just generally. Parents don't really drill in the humility in urban metros nowadays as much as they should, at least in my eyes. Of course, you can't ever comment on someone's parenting when you see what in my eyes is not the ideal case of parenting. So what you're saying is a very ideal case of parenting.
Not really. No. It's very middle class, guys. Like if you look at all the middle class people, वो बोलते हैं ना नजर लग जाएगा भाई मत करो. ये नजर जाएगा. What is नजर लग जाएगा basically? So don't gloat so much over all your achievements. Keep moving ahead. That's exactly what they are trying to say. Don't wear all your feathers and go out in all your fineries at all times. Work on the focus of what you're supposed to do, and instead of dwelling on your past achievements. That's what it means. Okay.
You're carrying on the chain of superior Tamil parenting, according to me.
Well, it's worked. I'll just say it's worked as far as I'm concerned. So that's good.
I have a bunch of Tamil friends, okay, many of whom are what you would call ultra HNIs. All are brought up with the same kind of humility. I don't know what it is in Tamil culture. This is at least what I have felt. Both I'd say Tamil and Malayali culture. Something about like humility.
You're right.
Right? What
Absolutely
is this logic?
I think, and the reason they're being also successful around the world, if you look at the top 20, 30 Fortune 500 CEOs, a lot of them are Indians and a large part of them are South Indians. It just, you don't start dwelling in your small achievements and accomplishments too much. So they will be far wealthier than they ever show. They'll be far more accomplished than they ever behave.
It's looked down upon to show off a little bit.
No, it's intrinsically not part of their lives. I'm telling you, it's intrinsic. Like if I've grown up in Jamshedpur, the Tatas are like that. They're not even South Indians, man. The Tata, औकात में रहे, आराम से रहे, दिखावा क्यों कर रहा है? And they are not like that. You will never see a Tata employee buzzing around in a Rolls Royce just because he can afford it. It's very strange, It's a culture. It's a culture that comes. So I think middle class attitude is the best attitude for survival. It's a survival instinct. So you don't dwell on everything, everything is transient. The transientness of nature and life is the one that keeps you humble, and your situational awareness open to see all the changes that are going to come your way to be able to tackle them. I think it's very important.
What was it growing up like in the 70s in a not so rich India versus now? Do you think of this at all?
All the time, and I feel sorry in my own judgmental way for the kids who are here right now.
Really?
I feel so sorry for them.
I thought you were going to say I was feeling sorry for the kids in the 70s. Go on.
Not at all. We had the best time climbing trees, catching tadpoles, getting into fights, getting out of fights, knowing how it is to swallow your ego and pride and say, sorry, brother, let's play with, give me your cricket ball. Yesterday you didn't give, yaar, ladai ho gayi, sorry, yaar. And not having the parents interfere in our fights, taking a stance, understanding what comes with taking somebody's side. All that skills that was so, okay, hey, I think the only justification I'll give for people born in the 70s in India is look at all the bloody CEOs in the world today. They were all born in the 70s and 80s in India, man. In India. They're not from any other country. We did something really, really right. Look at every successful, high net worth, influential Indian today. He's our generation.
True.
So we did something right. Much better than what the rest of the world did.
What was more correct in the environment? Scarcity?
No, just the middle class humbleness, the ability to, not pass judgment, have so many information at your disposal that you realize that if I didn't understand the word mental health, for instance, it's not like we didn't have that problem when we were youngsters. It was dealt in a different way. It was taken care of by the family and the community. You had people to talk to, and you had the elders in the family, the neighbors. Yeah, iska kar do, ye kar do, yaar ho gaya. Solve to kiya. Aisa nahi tha ki people don't take drastic steps. When we were youngsters, I lost a lot of my friends who committed suicide when they couldn't handle the stress. It was always there. But yet others managed to survive because of the way the whole society was built around handling situations like this, right? The more richer you got, the more cosmopolitan you got, the more into the city you got, the lonelier people started becoming. So I don't know anything about my neighbors in the apartment I live in Mumbai, half as much as I know about all my neighbors in Jamshedpur when I was there, because I knew whose cousin was getting married on which date and which train we had to go to take to get there. Those kind of keeping the mind active and alert and spread over various interests was one of the greatest survival techniques. I'm feeling sorry for the kids now because they don't know that.
You think now they're living within loneliness?
No.
Then?
No. So you're talking about understanding Gen Z, right? Brother, I will tell you, I have a Gen Z in my house, right? I'm amazed. Any parent will tell you that when 3, 14, 15-year-old guys got together in a house, the only thing the parents used to say is, Bhaiya, awaaz kam kariya, why are you guys yelling so much? But I'm telling you now, every parent I'm talking about will relate to what I'm saying. A teenager, when their friends come right home, you are surprised because they hardly make a noise. You can hardly hear their voice. The only time you can hear their voice is when they're playing video games with multiple partners around the world on your Fortnite or something like that. And I'm sure every parent listening to this is smiling. That is the difference. They are far wiser than we ever were. They're not in a hurry. They are, in fact, I'm surprised at the frugal nature at which Gen Z is living. In fact, it started off in Japan, where they're even more